I'd like to call to order the August 20th, 2019 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order. We'll start with a roll call, starting from my left.
Brenda Hamstead.
Hodge Patel.
Todd Chernick.
Don Kurt.
So we've got 3 members absent, but we do have quorum for tonight. Moving on, do you need a record of who's absent, or do you have it?
I got that.
Okay. Let's please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Starting with item number 4, then, approval of or amendments to the agenda for tonight. Is staff seeking any adjustments to the agenda? I'll make a motion to approve this meeting's agenda as published. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 The meeting agenda as published has been adopted. Item number 5, I personally was not at the July meeting, so, and I'm not sure, in that case, we will not have quorum to vote on that item?
No, you still have a quorum to conduct the business. It would require three members.
To approve the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, were the
I
3 of you
wasn't
there?
there.
So we only have 2.
Sounds like you'll need to postpone that agenda item.
Okay. So in regards to item number 5, which is the approval of July meeting minutes, of the members present, we only have 2 that were in attendance, so we are going to defer that item until next month, to the next meeting. Do I need is that a motion, or?
Yeah, you would
Make a motion to defer that item. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of deferring the approval of the July meeting minutes to next month, say aye.
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 That motion passed unanimous. All right, item number 6, which is consideration of primary variances. Before we move into that, I'd like to read into the record that the Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial board comprised of resident volunteers of the City of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of the zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determination. With regards to decisions on primary variances, which we'll be hearing tonight, the board's basis for decision is provided by these 4 considerations. A, relief if granted would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. And B, there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. And C, relief if granted would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And D, that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured and that substantial justice is done. Agenda item number 6 is a consideration of primary variances. We'll start with item A, which is case V19-007, 15825 Westbrook Road. Would staff please present?
Chairman, it looks like the applicant is not here, so we wish to move it to be heard after the next variance, if that's possible.
Has anyone been in contact with the applicant?
I emailed him. I haven't I have not heard from him, so we can just wait, or if you wanted to defer it.
I'll make a motion that we move V19-007 to follow V19-008. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor of moving V19-007 to follow V19-008, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passed unanimous. Then moving on to V19-008, 2660 Bethany Church Road. Would staff please present?
V19-008, 2660 Bethany Church Road. The requested variance is to reduce the rear property line from 50 feet to 8 feet. Section 64-416, subsection D. The site is a 1.06 acre lot located on Bethany Church Road. It is zoned AG1 and is located in the rural Milton overlay. The property includes a 3,525 square foot single family home and a 2,150 square foot home, or 3-story guest house, and that variance was V18-014, located to the west of the single family home. The applicant began construction of the pavilion without a permit. The applicant proposes to construct a 20-foot by 19-foot pavilion that is 9 feet from the rear property line, Exhibit A in your packet. The applicant shows a proposed landscape strip that will shield the structure from the property owner to the south, also Exhibit A in your packet. Section 64-416D states that the minimum rear yard shall be 50 feet. Since Mr. Young is constructing a pavilion in the minimum rear yard, a variance is required. The Design Review Board held a meeting on August 6, 2019, and had the following comments. It must match the existing buildings, a minimum 25-foot encroachment, landscape type and plan at the rear yard year-round, ask the Board of Zoning Appeals to deny at current location, structures need more aesthetic and needs DRB approval, and it shows no real hardship. The staff response is the accessory structure was being constructed without any issued building permit. The ordinance states that all accessory structures must be located in the rear or side yard, but not within the minimum yard. This requirement protects the surrounding property, the surrounding property owners, and promotes the rural character. The applicant has not demonstrated that there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertains to this lot that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship, since the need for this variance is based on constructing a pavilion in the minimum rear yard and therefore caused by the applicant. Allowing the construction of the accessory structure in the rear yard will cause harm, public safety, health and welfare will not be secured, and substantial justice will not be done for the surrounding properties. And staff recommends denial of this request.
Are there any questions for staff? I have one. Is pertaining, did the city architect, look at what was discussed as a proposed landscape strip in terms of feasibility? Has that been reviewed?
From what's been proposed, I have.
Okay.
It's they're leaving 8 to 9 feet in the back. I thought that was insufficient to really put some year-round screening that would eventually mature and grow. I think you need much more.
Yeah, there was
more of a dimension
significant
there.
discussion on that in the DRB meeting, I heard.
There was.
Okay.
And the DRB board felt that minimum 25 feet on any of that to really have some sort of a sufficient landscape.
Sustainable.
Like
Okay.
a buffer kind of an area.
Okay. And has the other thing I heard in the, well, we'll wait and let the applicant present, and then I may have more questions. Are there any other questions for staff? No. I guess I have one more as I read the comments from the Design Review Board, which is there to do courtesy review on the design, but their comment is the structure needs more aesthetics and needs DRB approval. So it doesn't sound like they concluded that the structure was aesthetically pleasing regardless of the location.
That is correct.
Okay. All right.
I do have a question.
Sure.
So there was no other, I'm not for the architect, no other input from neighbors? I think we saw 3. I think there's 3 attached, 3 letters in favor. Did we have any other input from neighbors, written or anything?
Only during the DRB meeting, one neighbor did get up and voiced concerns. I don't know if they're here tonight, but they are. So I'll let them speak at the public portion.
Okay. If there are no further questions for staff, I'd ask the applicant to come forward and present. And Mr. Reese, if, of course, state your name and address for the record. One thing that we're trying to do a better job of is showing the site plan and any pictures for both the public that's here as well as for the record. So if you could please help us with that.
Okay. It's showing on my screen, but not on the boards.
Okay.
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 Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I am Scott Reese with Brumlow Reese and Associates, doing business at 13685 Highway 9, Milton, Georgia, 30004. I'm here representing the Youngs on their application for the primary variance to allow a pavilion to be constructed into the rear yard setback. The Youngs, as probably 95 or 99% of the general population, are not well versed on the ordinances of the city of Milton. In their opinion, since it was a pavilion without sides or a floor or any power or gas or anything to it, in their opinion, it was not a structure. So there was no ill will or anything on there. The previous owners had parked a large boat in this particular site, and they have continually parked their cars there. So in their, I guess, uninformed view, they were just going to construct a structure over where they were parking their cars. As I'm sure you're aware, many things are allowed against the property line. You can park cars, boats, tractors, any number of things against the property line. You can construct a driveway, a playground, a pool deck, many other things in there. So, and what they thought they were going to do, or what they're planning to do, is just kind of make a situation better. As you see on the site plan, the previous owner had constructed a second carriage house for his mother-in-law, who was displaced by Hurricane Katrina. We were instrumental in helping them obtain that permit some time back. Also, you'll notice on the site plan the building setback lines and the primary and reserve septic systems. I'm going to go to another view of the site plan where we've highlighted the building setback lines and also labeled the garage on the primary residence. As you can see, pulling the building or the structure into compliance would block the existing garage on the primary residence. Next slide, this kind of gives you an aerial view of where the structure is and in relation to the surrounding properties. In your packet, you'll find that the three properties that are affected by this, the owners have provided a letter for their approval or for the variance.
We have those.
Okay. So the three properties would be the Farrens here and here. Mr. Hargard, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and Mr. Cato, which his house is not visible here, but these are the three properties that are affected by the proposed or the resident or the structure. This is a rear view showing where the structure was started. The fence is roughly along the property line. You'll see this open area where the existing, there was a drive. This is kind of a unique property going back to the prior. See the highlighted blue area? There was a driveway that ran through and served multiple residences there, kind of prior to the city of Milton non-conforming situation, and we helped kind of relocate that driveway sometime back. But in that particular case, there was a drive-through that connected to that, and you see in the structure where that driveway was pre-existing. So this is the vegetation that's along the property line now, except for that gated area. And the neighbors and the applicant have agreed that that this type of vegetation would provide screening to adequately protect them. And you'll find in your packet the letters that agree to that. I'm going to have to disagree with the city on this about the open-sided structure blocking out and preventing the plants to grow. The applicant contacted nurseries and landscape architects. They've assured them that there is ample room, ample sunlight for those plants to grow. You can see they're not huge trees. They don't need the area, but they've been assured that there is ample area and the amount of light. So this is on the other side. Again, the neighbors have agreed that this screening will be to fill in the open area. One more view. This is from the kind of in line with the houses, looking at the structure that started. Another view, another one. This is from the contractor that will finish. This is what the finished product will look like. So it's a little overboard, I think, for design review board and maybe the city to come in and say, we need a lot of architectural control on an open-sided structure they're going to match the paint of the existing house and the shingles to match the existing house, and just kind of a typical rural Milton structure with no great design standards. So we've gone through, and I think to address some of the the standards that we accept for a need for a variance. Demonstrated hardship. There is no place in compliance to place the structure. If we try to pull it up, we're either in a septic system, we're blocking the existing garage of the existing primary residence. So, in our humble opinion, there is absolutely a hardship involved. The size and lay of the property just does not allow for any other place to provide this. So, kind of in closing, I know it's been kind of the board's practice in the past to rely mainly upon the actual neighbors and the people that will be affected. We've addressed the people that will be affected here. They're all adults. They're able to make decisions, and they have agreed that it's not a problem for this structure to be in with the agreed planning area and the design that they have proposed and provided for them. So I think it's a little bit, asking a good bit for government to step in and tell these people that, no, you think you might know what you need for your property, but we're going to tell you no, that you don't really know what you want. So that being said, I'm going to let the Youngs, they can put a much more a face on the situation. So I'm going to allow them, if they don't mind, to come forward, and you can just scroll down.
Well, first of all, I apologize for starting it without a permit. Shouldn't have done that.
State your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is Joe Young. I live at 2660 Bethany Church Road. And you'll see on the screen, that's a picture of our property from the common driveway. My wife, Judy, and I, otherwise known as Gigi and Grandpa, live next door to Michael and Becca. We're here, my son and daughter-in-law, and their 3 kids. That's why we moved here, so we could be next door to our kids and grandkids. And our house is on the right, and their house is on the left. And you guys graciously granted us a variance in October of last year for us to finish off the basement of the guest house and increase the heated and cooled square footage to 2,150, but not to increase the footprint of the home. And we've done that, and we're living there since April. This is a little further into the driveway where you see Michael's garage on the left and our cottage on the right. Obviously, Michael has a garage and we don't. And we went ahead and parked the cars underneath the proposed pavilion to give you an idea of what that would look like there. You've already seen this view, but one other thing I should have done is I should have gone to Thomas ahead of time and said, Thomas, this is what I'm planning on doing, and got that all squared away ahead of time, and I didn't, and I was wrong about that, and I apologize to him. Since then, we've talked, and we've agreed that it's okay as long as I put in the landscape strip. But you'll see from this that Thomas's house is a little over 250 feet away. The Farron's house is around 190 feet away. So it's not like we're putting it right on the property line right next to a house. There's just another view. That's from our backyard toward Michael and Becca's house. So that shows you how close it is to their garage. I'm standing back on the property line there looking backwards. And you can see it'd be hard to move it back. In fact, I tried to represent it here. The square that Scott drew where we're proposing it, I just matched that in PowerPoint and made it colored blue, and I just pushed it back. And you see it straddling the 50-foot setback line there, and it's in front of Michael's garage. Obviously, if we put it behind the 50-foot setback, it would totally block everything. So this, in our opinion, is the only place we can put it. And we understand all the things that we're violating, but we'd ask you guys to consider. And we are going to match the bushes there. We're going to put in, as it says on the site plan, 6 15-gallon ruby laurel pedlums, which match the predominant plant back there. And they're about 4 to 5 foot high to begin with. And in about a 20-foot area, 6 is basically on 3-foot centers, and we think that'll cover okay. Any questions for me?
I do have a few questions. If there's any other board members have questions, go ahead.
So I see where you put the blue square and pushed it back off of the property line. In all reality, how much room is there to move away from the property line and still have some of the setback there?
My opinion is there's none. You can see the concrete patio there. Michael and Becca sometimes park there. So even if we push it back, just a little bit, we'd be in your egress and ingress area to that.
Would you like to see the site plan that's?
We have it.
Okay.
We have it, and this is helpful. We're not necessarily in the business of trying to come up with alternative solutions, but one of the things I heard in that, and do you have more questions before I jump in? And let me state before I jump too far in, I live in the area and have for the last 18 years. I'm familiar with your neighbors. Mr. Young and I have never met. I have no issues with being objective about this specific case, but I just, for full disclosure, wanted you to understand that. I am very familiar with this area, having been a resident for 18 years, and I've been on this board since we've been a city. So my question is, my first line of question is based off what I heard in the DRB. And there was a lot of discussion and concern about this being as close to 9 foot off the property line. I appreciate the dimensional line of sight. Those properties do sit above, and we are here, as the DRB suggested, not only to protect the current neighbors, but future neighbors. So there was a request for you and the city architect or staff to work on alternatives. Have you done that? Have you sought any alternatives besides just simply moving it as you show here?
Well, they didn't make that request to me, that there was a request. I'd be more than happy to work with the architect or the board, but nobody said that's what needs to be done. I was surprised that you guys didn't come to me and say, can I come to your house and look at it? So I'm more than happy to have them come over or me sit down with them, but I did not get that from design review that I was being asked to do that.
Well, I watched the video today, and it was pretty clear that they were looking for you, the city architect, and one of the neighbors to try to come up with a solution.
Well, I wasn't being disobedient. I didn't
That's
understand
fine,
that.
that's fine. So I did walk the site, and I'm curious as to an alternative that I identified.
You came out to my house?
Yes. I went on the drive access in the back.
Oh, okay.
I didn't enter your property. That's another discussion we're having later tonight about permission.
Sure.
But I noticed that concrete patio next to the garage.
Yep.
And it looked like from my line of sight that was actually a gravel area.
No, the concrete pad is real concrete. That's the only concrete that's there. The rest of it all is all gravel.
Would it not be an alternative to locate a structure with a roof? Because I heard from the DRB that you're looking to protect vehicles, extend the roof line and put something there, which would be mostly out of the setback?
Well, it's not. You can see with the red line there, it crosses the setback. And, this is a shared property. We own it as tenants in common. Gigi and Grandpa live on this side, Michael and Becca live on that side. They use that for their car, and they've got a garage there, and so that's their parking space. It's not my parking space.
Okay. And then I'm also, I understand you're apologetic, and I appreciate that. I think this board appreciates that. But there was mention of you having a construction background. There was also mention of you being here in October for a variance request. It's hard for me to understand why you wouldn't have sought, at a minimum, a building permit, or at a minimum, talking with your neighbors in advance. Because if you would have sought a building permit, then a lot of this could have been avoided.
I apologize. It's really 6 posts and a roof, I just didn't think it was that big a deal. On a gravel structure with no sides, no electricity, no plumbing.
Well, on a 1-acre parcel that has 2 houses, and then now we're adding another structure which has a roof that creates more impervious surface. And this property feeds down into a pond.
We're not taking away impervious surface. It still has gravel underneath it.
I know,
Just
but
because it has a roof doesn't make it impervious.
Well, the roof creates directed flow then.
No, there's a drain right there. All that water goes underneath my house, all the way over to the side yard.
So,
in my opinion, it wouldn't change the
We're not
drainage
here to debate, and as I started, we're not here to problem solve or alternatives. I did see that as an alternative option, which less impact, because I did listen to the DRB and their concerns. I share some of their concerns in terms of, I cannot recall since I've been on this board at the inception of the city, any variance request that close to the property line.
Well, I understand that, and I understand the precedent issue. But in my opinion, the reality issue is whether it's 9 foot away or 25 foot away, it doesn't make a difference to my neighbors. They still are a long ways away. They're up high. They're worried about the visual. They're not worried about the proximity to the property line.
I understand.
The reason we're putting it there is just because it's an existing spur driveway that makes the most sense to park there. That's all.
And this board, and I know this is your second time coming through here, so it's not completely new, but we have 4 considerations, and we have to meet all 4 of those considerations in the self-imposed nature of this is something that we are trying to get our arms around. You'll note in item B of our variance standards, it does speak to situations not caused by the variance applicant. So that's something we're trying to negotiate here tonight. So those are my questions. I'm not sure if there's others from the board based on what you've heard.
The picture we saw from the builder, or I think you said the builder, looked like a little shed over a deck that somebody was using to sit out on their deck, right? No. So this is going to be a parking structure, just to clarify. Is that?
There it is.
So that is the design.
But it looks to be quite smaller, much smaller, and
That's a 10 by 10, and I'm
Yeah.
going to do a 20 by 20.
But
Yeah.
it will be
Built the same way.
right. But yours is basically for the function of parking cars, is what you're saying,
Shade
with
for my
with
car.
gravel on the bottom.
Yes, sir, that's all it is. Gravel on the bottom exists, and rather than having 4 posts, it'll have 6. We'll have 1 in the middle on each side. But it'll be painted the same color as my house. It'll have the same little design there, and it'll be a small A-frame that's going to rise up about 4 foot.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for the applicant before we move into public comment? You have a seat now. What we'll do is we'll have public comment, and then you'll have a chance to make closing comments at the end based on what you've heard. Is there anyone, so I'm opening up for public comment. We'll do a 10-minute session for those who wish to speak in favor, and then open it up for a 10-minute, same period of time total for those who are against this application. Do we have anyone here to speak in favor?
Yes, we have two.
Okay. If you could please announce them.
The first one's going to be Cal Cato at 2654 Bethany Church Road.
Good evening. I'm Cal Cato. We live at 2654 Bethany Church Road. My comment was, we're in favor of it, just like we've talked about. You've got the letters we wrote. And just for the history of the property, originally there was 40 acres there, 45. The Farrens owned it. And Trey's still there, the grandson. But Mr. Farren just randomly gave an acre to a granddaughter, another acre and a half, 2 acres to a sister. And the Halgard's house was another house that was built there for the other Mr. Farren's sister in 1958. Our house was built the core of our house was built in 1957. And then when the Young's property was done, it was another granddaughter. And it was, Fulton County, they just did it. And that driveway that goes out, is just a 20-foot easement that'll be there forever. And we used it until 2007, about the time that Thomas and Tricia moved in. We put the driveway into Bethany Church because it got so dangerous going out of that old driveway between the oak trees. And this is just not a normal piece of property. Where we live, we have the spring, a creek, and a pond that Todd's seen. And the church is across the street. And we have 11 and a half acres. And then another granddaughter's property is behind our house on the other side of the pond going down Bethany Church. Another Mr. Farren's granddaughter. And I think we're all just sort of dealing with what we bought, and living with it. It's not a subdivision. It's not the manor or any of these other neighborhoods. And I think if the Youngs screen it, and Thomas really does see it, the Farrens could see it pretty well. We can't see it except when we come down the driveway right as we leave, going back onto Bethany Church Road. And I just don't see it as a hardship, and I don't see it as impacting if somebody were to do this in a neighborhood. You can't do it. But these are odd pieces of property, and I just don't see that it'll ever come up again, or rarely for y'all, unless another situation like us that was...
Surprised how many odd properties we have in this city.
Yeah, well, I guess. And ours, was, like I said, family owned. And then in the mid-'90s, when the older people started dying out, we ended up buying our property from the estate. And the previous owners were for the Halgards bought from an estate. So anyway, we're all pretty well protected back there too. So I don't think anybody's ever going down the road. And once this is done, nobody will ever know it was done. So
Okay, thank you.
that's pretty much.
And next?
Next, we have Thomas Halgard at 2652 Bethany Church Road. And Chairman, we had one more submittal for support.
Okay.
My name is Thomas Halgard. I live at 2652 Bethany Church Road. I have been for all the variance meetings for this property. In the last review, I spoke against the approval of this variance. Mr. Young has since then approached me with, for me, an acceptable proposal for planting a buffer zone that I believe will screen. As I discussed in my last appearance at the board here, the issue with that piece of land is I don't think the board nor the city can tell anybody what they can or cannot do with that piece of land right there. So if we allow a building and it's permitted and we plant a buffer zone and the board can recommend that it's planted and maintained and kept, which means that the next neighbor that comes cannot just go and remove that buffer zone if they feel so, then I'm in support of this, because then at least I know what I'm going to look at for the next 10 years if I'm alive that long. And that's at least then I know what I can do from my side to screen off, as well as what the Young is doing. Again, I've seen the property, and I agree with Mr. Young. You may be able to move it a couple of feet here or there, but I don't think that's going to make a very big difference to the appearance from where I'm at. So planning the buffer zone and have it maintained long-term has to be the goal with an approval.
Thank you.
I have a question. Ask him a question, right? No?
Yes. That's
Okay,
fine.
just quickly. I just want to make sure, are you the person that was referenced in the DRB meeting as objecting to this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to make sure I understood that. Okay, thank you.
That's good clarification.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, the third and final is Michael Young at 2660 Bethany Church Road.
Hey guys, Michael Young, 2660 Bethany Church Road. I'm in the greenhouse. I'm the son. I just wanted to talk about what you had mentioned as a alternative in that concrete patio. I've measured it. I've done a lot of research trying to figure out if we can park there with a shaded structure above. Right now, our garage is plenty big for 2 cars, but our garage doors are too small. We have a van, and so my wife cannot pull into that garage because she'll hit a mirror. I have to pull a mirror in if I want to get in there, and I don't want her to have to do that. So anyway, she parks on that side concrete structure or concrete patio. It's about 18 feet wide, and it would be really tight to fit 2 cars even there because there's a railroad tie. If you look at the site plan against the, I don't know what direction I'm looking at, but towards the house, there's a wood railroad ties coming down at a cascade level on that side as well as the right side. So if 2 cars were fitting, they would be too close together to open. So that actual area doesn't work for 2 cars. It would work for my wife's car to be covered, but at some point we'll figure out a way to get her in the garage. But the idea for that spot, it just doesn't work from a feasibility standpoint. Obviously, I'm in favor of this, one, because they want to protect their cars, and there's trees, really tall, old, beautiful pines right there that drop sap and pine cones and limbs and things like that, and they just want to protect their cars. They have nicer cars than we do, but I also have a garage. So that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And for the record, we have one other letter of support from 2660 Bethany Bend, Trey and Christy Farron, just for the record. Okay, with that, I'll move to the next phase of public comment. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Okay, seeing and hearing no interest in that. Now is an opportunity for Mr. Reese or Mr. Young to have a closing statement before we then move into making a motion.
Yeah. So, as you see, we have the 3 properties that surround this, the applicant property, that are all in favor of the variance going forward to allow this structure to be constructed. I think if you study the site plan carefully, you'll see that trying to shift it anywhere else is a virtual impossibility. Not to say we couldn't shift 6 inches here or, maybe a foot there, but it just almost feels like then that we're we have a solution. Everyone that it affects is for the solution. And then, so no, we're going to come up with a problem. And it's almost a punitive situation when you go in and tell someone that, you need to tear this down, even though you and your neighbors agree that it's fine. I just understand, you maybe feel that your task is to protect the greater good, but as a property owner and business owner and all in the city of Milton, the area there is the concern, and the people that are affected are for the variance. That is the best solution to the situation. And you notice there was no one in opposition here. So that being said, I hope you would try to see into the hardship of the situation. So thank you, and we'll try to answer any questions if you have them.
Do you have any questions for the applicant? Any questions for staff? I do have a question. In this case, DRB left it with recommending denial. Staff's position is to recommend for denial. There is no guidance if we choose to go for approval, although we did hear requests from the neighbors regarding a landscape buffer to be planted and maintained. Just keep that in mind. At this point, I will make note that the public comment is closed, and I will open the floor for a motion and a second.
Well, can I say a couple things? I just feel
Well, before
we'll
be able to do that in discussion.
Okay.
Do you care to make a motion?
Make a motion to deny.
I'll second. Now we're in discussion, and since you made the motion, why don't you start with?
Well, I just feel like, you say that our job is to protect the public good, and I understand that, and I understand that there's support from the neighbors. I just feel like a step was missing, that a discussion with the city architect could have changed things or helped things along. So I just feel like there was a step that was missing, and that he could have helped this situation.
Related to that, I feel like steps were missed also with the neighbors, and now we're trying to make the best of a not so good situation. Whereas if the process was followed, which should have been given this construction background that this applicant claims to have, and their recent variance application last year, that we could have potentially not even been here or been here with far less of an intrusion. This is a 1 acre lot, just over 1 acre, with two homes on it. So it's perhaps a situation of trying to do too much with too little. That's my viewpoint, why I seconded the motion.
Well, and I feel like a lot of us kind of understand where you're coming from as well. I mean,
it's not that we're not empathetic, yeah.
Right. I mean, I have my own property. I understand that, and I want to be able to do what I want with my own property. But there are rules that we follow in the city of Milton, and if we can work with the staff, then maybe something could be worked out.
I guess seems like I'm always on the opposing position here, but with all due respect, I don't see in our considerations for a variance anything to do with did they follow the process, and we're going to penalize them if they didn't.
It's true.
Okay, so I look at the 4 considerations. I don't know if you want me to read through all of them, but I think they meet all 4 conditions. There's a hardship. If it doesn't go against the spirit of the ordinance, as far as I see. Relief would not affect the public good of the surrounding neighbors. They've all said it's okay. And health and safety, I can't imagine that this would be a health and safety problem. So with all due respect, like I said, I can't make my decision based on, hey, you guys didn't follow the process. I make it on these 4 considerations. So that's just my opinion.
Well, we've also been given the recommendation that there needs to be a greater buffer, that 9 feet is not enough, and that's from the city staff.
Yeah, if we, for some reason, were to go the other way and approve it, I certainly would want to see those conditions, at least like the one neighbor asked for, that this gets somehow put in here, that there's not going to be some changes in the future, that it has to stay this way. I don't know how that would be worded, and we'd probably need some help on that. But, yeah, I agree.
My challenge is the buffer. It's getting that close to the side setback line there is of great concern. When we're going 9 feet, we've previously approved a variance, and we're still dealing with a 1.06 acre lot.
I guess my question would be, who is affected by that? That the fact that it's 9 feet away, who in the city of Milton is affected by that? Or is it just that we say we don't want to set a precedent? I mean, maybe that's the issue. I don't know.
Well, precedent, I'd ask the city attorney to weigh in on that because that word's been used a number of times.
I was chomping at the bit land is generally considered unique in most instances. So particularly in the case of a variances, precedent is almost the least likely place where precedent comes into play. That being said, if the only relevant factors are identical, we should strive to treat property owners in similar situations or virtually identical situations the same. As indicated, there are innumerable factors that may come into play, and if any significant factors are different, then there's the factor of precedent doesn't actually come into play. It's something you should bear in mind that the closer it is, the more likely you should at least weigh whether it will have an impact. But you're not bound specifically by every 9-foot setback request will absolutely have to be granted from here on out. It requires analysis of each individual property and each individual adjacent property and situation that comes before you. You weigh each one of them individually on its own merits.
Is there a possibility to defer this and let them meet with the architect?
I suppose that was a request from the DRB that to happen. And building on that point, Don, is I'm not looking at this in a punitive way. I'm not looking at, well, you didn't follow the process and therefore the answer is no. I'm looking at it as we're faced with making a choice that is not very desirable. And there perhaps would have been other choices that were more palatable than this one.
Which is kind of what Brenda's saying, that maybe...
Yeah, and that's why I'm building on that. That's perhaps an option or an alternative versus an outright denial. I think the applicant and his representative would have more guidance based on what they heard tonight to know kind of where we're leaning, and they can choose to either incorporate that and follow up on that or have a better idea what the outcome might be. So with that, let's first vote on the motion that's here, and then we can decide if that makes sense or not. So,
just for your own personal information, a motion to defer would take precedence over an outstanding substantive motion.
So if one of us makes a motion to defer?
It would take precedence over the outstanding substantive motion.
So from a Robert's rules or rule of order here, do we need to rescind the motion?
You would not have to rescind. You could make a motion to postpone.
On top of that?
And then it would take precedence over.
Almost like an amendment, so.
Well, when we
vote on that
came
first?
back, it would come back.
Okay. Well, is there a motion?
You could also
Based on the
you could also
discussion?
withdraw. You could also make a new motion to.
Okay, I withdraw my motion to deny, and I make a motion to defer.
And do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Oh, go ahead. No.
I think it's important, as we've done in the past with a deferral, to be pretty clear on what we're looking to happen.
And for how long?
So,
And are we looking to defer to the subsequent meeting, or do you
yes.
feel there's more
Looking to
time needed?
I think there's enough time. I mean, that's a month away. So I believe that
Let's
the
ask
applicants.
staff, based on their
Okay.
experience, is there enough, would that be, if we move to the following meeting, deferral?
I believe it would be if the applicant's willing to meet right away.
Okay.
So we have enough time.
So your motion would be to defer to the next meeting,
Yes.
and specific, can you give a couple points of guidance of what you're looking for?
To meet with the city architect and to, I don't know, how do you want to word that? Or how should we word that?
Let me say, anything beyond the deferral really is for information
guidance.
purposes only. For
Okay.
when they come back, whether they can say, we've tried to do what you were thinking, they will still come back. They will still have the right to have it considered. It's just a matter of them knowing whether or not they feel like they comply with what you were expecting to have happened in that interim period.
Okay.
Okay,
and-
so just for an informational purposes, then, I think the one point was made that there, at least one of the neighbors was looking for some sort of assurance. I don't know how we would do that, but they should come back and give us some kind of suggestion as to what this buffer is going to be, or what their input is about what this buffer will be and how long it will last. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, requiring a buffer implies that it will be
That it will always be
maintained
there. Okay.
and that it will remain. If there is more detail in terms of, I heard mention of specific species, was it some that I lower patch. I mean, I was going to say I know how big they get because I've torn one down. It's already back again. So and it can get into more detail as that, or it could just be sufficient to maintain a annual or consistent visual buffer. I mean,
Right.
Yeah, the two predominant things I think we heard and the design review board also commented on was the design and the location. So aesthetically, what can be done, and location-wise, what can be done to mitigate the intrusion, is I think what we're expecting or looking for the applicant to do with the city architect. Is that a good summation? Mm-hmm. So we have a motion and a second to defer, allowing the applicant time to work with the city architect on alternative design and location options. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? That motion to defer passed unanimous. So I think it's clear what you guys need to do next on that front. The next item on our agenda is getting back to case V19-007-15825 Westbrook Road, which is another unique case.
That's me.
House from back in the 1960s that we're trying to get in compliance.
You guys have it in the 60s, but it's 1800s, late 1800s is what.
All right. I'm glad you're here. I first would ask staff to present.
Just state your name and address.
Oh, Mr. Hanson, hang on a second. We first have to present the case.
We have to do the report. So, yeah, just.
You ready, Chairman?
Go ahead.
Petition number V19-007-15825 Westbrook Road. The requested variances are to reduce the east property side setback from 25 feet to 20 feet for an existing house and addition, section 64-416, subsection C1. The other variance that he's requesting is to allow an existing deck to encroach into the side yard setback 16 feet, section 64-416, subsection C1. The site is a 0.69 acre lot located on Westbrook Road. It is zoned AG1 and is located in the rural Milton overlay. The property includes a 2017 square foot single family home and a freestanding accessory garage located behind the house. The existing deck and house were in its current location when the applicant purchased it back in 2013. Section 64-416C1 states that the minimum side yard adjacent to interior property lines is 25 feet. The applicant is asking for a two-part variance. Part one is to legalize the existing house and front porch, Exhibit A, and side yard setback variance for proposed new addition at rear of dwelling, Exhibit B. Part two is to legalize the existing wood deck encroachment. The Design Review Board held a meeting on July 9th, 2019, and had no comments. The staff response. Part one, the house was built in 1960, and the applicant is wanting to legalize the portion of the existing dwelling that encroaches into the east side yard setback. The survey date, 5/29/2019, indicates that the existing dwelling encroaches at maximum 5 feet into the setback, 20.2 feet actual setback. In addition, the applicant is requesting to construct a new bedroom addition 25 foot deep by 21 feet 10 inches wide at the back of the dwelling. This addition will encroach into the side yard setback by 5 feet, 20 foot actual setback. Part 2, the existing deck, a 10 foot by 10 foot, was encroaching when the applicant purchased the home in 2013. The survey date 5/29/2019 indicates the existing deck encroached at maximum 16 feet into the east side yard setback, 9.1 feet actual setback, allowing the proposed construction and existing deck will not harm public safety, health, or welfare, and the substantial justice will be done for the homeowner. Staff recommends approval of this request.
So the addition is, it's not a three-part variance, it's a two.
Correct.
So this addition is lumped in with part 1, and based on the more detailed drawing, it looks like there's a 2-foot offset from the back of the house. Yes. Am I reading that right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Are there any other questions for staff before we have the applicant present?
I guess I do have one question. Is this common for someone to come back afterwards and request to legalize something that was, I guess, previously there? Is that a common thing?
That would be common, yes.
Did this come up in the building permit
And
process?
if there's something that was built
doing new.
prior and we notice that it's a non-conforming, we're going to, while they're doing their request, we ask that they legalize any portion
Okay.
or structure that is non-compliant.
So from a process standpoint, the applicant came in for a building permit, and it was identified that the existing structure was non-conforming.
That's
And
correct.
therefore, this variance is initiated.
That's right.
That's good, thank you.
Okay, and knew that there was an issue?
Yeah.
Okay, so we brought it forward to the city.
Good, thank you.
Okay. I wish the prior case was here to hear all that. All right, Mr. Hanson, the floor is yours, and it looks like Cody's going to help. We're trying to do a better job of making sure site plans and visuals are on video. Because
Okay.
These are recorded
Yeah.
sessions, so I think
Yeah.
Cody's going to help with that.
Yeah, this is the older plat. I'm sorry. Dan Hansen. I live at 15825 Westbrook Road. That's Milton, 3004.
So tell us a bit about your project and how this all came about.
Yes, so I've been working on the cottage for probably about 5 years now. So every year or two, I do an upgrade and addition to it. So the main structure itself was re-roofed and gutted and reset and designed to maintain the cottage appeal that it had originally. New paint, things like that, and then some landscaping. A couple of years ago, I permitted for a garage with a raised roof above it and matched that to the home, same tin roof style and everything else. And then the final phase is really to add on an additional room to the back and finish out all the landscaping all the way around it and then get the main structure re-sided now to match up. I mean, it matches right now, but the siding looks like it's probably the 60s.
So there's a picture on page 9 of 9 that might be worth showing.
Yeah, there's some great photos in there.
Pictures are worth 1,000 words. So you actually added this garage and intentionally did it as an offset
Yes.
from the home, knowing that you were going to extend the home at some future
Right.
date?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and I didn't want to ruin the initial design of the home. I mean, it's got a great cottage style. So I think she told me it was called the Chicken Creek Cottage for a long time. So maintain the integrity of the original design, and then met the design with the garage, offset that at a bit of an angle, And then the variance I'm asking for, the 2 feet on the right side back of, well, I guess looking down at the property from the road, it'd be 2 feet to the right side back, is to offset that additional room, which will be single story, but it'll still have the pitched roof to match the rest of the house. But I don't want it to just be stuck on the back end and short of the rest of the house. It needs to be architecturally relevant to the existing design. So if I can push it over 2 feet and then have it break through the roof line and come down 2 feet, it'll actually look like a staggered home like you see in some of the homes around here.
Can you show that? That's actually, I think, the next page of his site plan. And will there, at some point, do you envision there being some sort of like a breezeway connecting the house and the garage?
In the garage, yeah, everyone keeps telling me I need to do that, but so far I haven't had a plan for it. So.
Okay.
You can
Just
only
trying to
spend so
understand
much.
the
It'll take a few
offset.
years to pay this one off. So.
Understood. And so can you help us understand what and maybe the city architect can help with this too, the desire for the offset that you're looking at? Because that entails more encroachment.
Yeah, that's right here. Well, does this mouse work? No, it doesn't work. So it's that, it's this bit right here.
Yes.
That comes over. So as you can see, it's not going to be the full width of the back of the house. And if I keep it in the house and just shove it up against the house as a lower connection stuck in, I don't think aesthetically it's very appealing because it just looks like I stuck a room on the back of the house. I think if it's offset and it can break the existing roof line and then run a second roof down along the existing roof line at a lower level, that it would be much more in keeping with the existing architectural style the cottage is in today. So.
And will there be any decking or anything along the backside of that addition?
I hadn't planned on it. The property would rise up to it, so yeah, and it's not foundational. The rest of the house is on piers, so it would be on piers as well. And the back is, of course, double doors and an overhead glass, and I think that's in one of the drawings as well for you to see. So the back looks out to the woods. With just lots of glass and no view of the garage, which is kind of what I'm looking for.
And the only reason I'm asking about the deck is thinking about encroachment and trying to make sure that as you seek a variance, you know what you know.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yep.
But at this point, those are windows, and your actual door access is off to the side of the.
No, the doors are right there at the very back here of the property.
Yeah.
And there's also arch windows over the top that opens up because that roof is vaulted all the way up, just like the rest of the house.
Okay.
I think we have that drawing too, the back view of the house. Of the proposed structure.
I don't think I saw that in our packet. I see what you mean about the roof lines now, though, as you're trying to offset and lower.
Right, we want to tuck it right into cut out that existing roof, meet up to the header that's there, and let it break through the roof line partway down, come out as a second roof line coming down. So the peaks are consistent. And you see that in a lot of properties where one peak's offset from the other one. Well, it should be like this.
And so when you had the site plans done, you recognized there was an issue. You came to the city and worked on this variance as well as your building permit.
Yeah, we did the pre-meet, and that's where it was recognized that the current house was built long before the overlays were put in place. And as a result, those would have to be cleared up before anything else could be done.
Okay.
Because the garage was built within the build lines. So I never had a question.
And what's behind you in terms of the property line and property?
There's probably about 8 acres back of woods. There's a neighbor back there somewhere. I can't see him, but I think he owns somewhere between 11 and 15 acres.
And
So
has there been any, have you contacted the neighbor or has the city heard from this neighbor?
They were going to send letters out. I did talk to the only neighbor I can see, and he's like, that sounds awesome. So he's liked anything I've done because I've been continuing to improve it. So he just looks at it and says, well, you're making my place worth more. So this is the back as it would face the woods.
Okay. Go ahead, Don.
What is the sort of quartered round with the stairs coming off it? That's against the new addition. Is that another deck, or what is that? On the main site plan, it's sort of a quarter round, it says 20 feet, and there's stairs coming off it?
Fence line, is that right?
That's not the deck that you're talking about?
Oh,
getting-
no, that's just all the old, if this is traditional, as I imagine it was, it had two fireplaces, one in the front, one in the back. So all the fireplace stone, once it was collapsed, was reused as patio stone. So that's what that is. And then there's two steps that were made up into the lawn. So it's recessed a little bit, and then you step up onto the backyard.
So that piece was existing, you said, or that's
Yes.
new?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I've added to it since then.
And that definitely gets much closer to the boundary line, right?
No. No, that stays exactly as it is right now.
I mean,
because that's going to be my barbecue area. So that stonework is already there.
Does that have to have any kind of variance since it's-
You're referring to this one, correct?
Yeah.
Because it's a patio?
Yeah, that's what we're referring to, and
Yeah.
the question is, does that require any sort of variance?
No.
No.
Stone patio does not.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's just stone patio on grade.
Okay. Thank you.
And lastly, Cody, can you help show the GIS map or a Google map view, trying to make sure that we have a good bearing of the proximity to neighbors, which is great.
Yeah, I believe the map I was in the packet was a little blurry.
Yes. Although you can see from it, it's heavily wooded.
Yeah. I can't.
Or appears to be.
It is. Yeah, no, it is. It's part of the appeal. It's a dirt road, and you can't hear anything.
This is the only thing I have that's not blurry. And if you look, the neighbor to the east, I believe that's the De La Pierres.
All right, help us with direction here, which is north. Okay, I see.
That's a horse farm. That's
Yep. And then behind, that neighbor lives somewhere out here. I can't see him unless I go down the road here and come around the turn during winter, and I can see him through the trees. But other than that, and my next door neighbor, Tom.
Okay. All right. Anything further you'd like to add before we move into public comment?
No, I think it's going to be awesome.
If you could have a seat.
Sure.
We're open for public comment. You'll have a chance to make a closing remark, or we may have more questions. Now I'll move into public comment. We'll start with a 10-minute session for each. Those here to speak in favor, followed by those here to speak in opposition, 10 minutes apiece. Is there anyone noted to speak here in favor of this application?
there is none.
Okay. And are you, is the city in receipt of any letters from neighbors?
No.
Okay. Is hearing and seeing no interest in public speaking in favor, is there any public wishing to speak against this application? Hearing and seeing no interest in public comment, I will move on to Mr. Hansen's opportunity to make a closing comment and for us to ask any questions.
Sure, absolutely. So I think that the second variance, the first one I can't really do anything about. It was pre-existing. But the second one, I do think it's minor. And it really doesn't intrude on anything at all outside of the variance line that's in question. And doesn't make any major change to the appearance of the property from any view or any angle, if anyone's going to look at it. The addition will, of course, because it'll be an addition, but I don't think the variance really causes any problems. It doesn't violate the standard to the extent that I'm concerned about it, that I'd worry about the neighbors or anything like that. So I'm hoping you guys end up feeling the same way about it.
I do like how you framed your letter of appeal in terms of our variance considerations. Exceptional situation is an understatement, and
Yeah.
relief would be a relief. We do have 4 considerations, so it's important that, as you heard earlier, that we consider those
Yes,
in terms
absolutely.
of both Part 1 and Part 2. Is there any questions for the applicant or for staff?
I've got a question for the applicant.
Sure.
In terms of the finish and so forth on the addition, have you worked with city staff and Bob on that?
I've submitted the full architectural plans for it. And pending the approval of this, then I'm hoping that those will come through pretty quick.
Okay.
Then I can select the builder.
Any other questions for the applicant or for staff? Okay, with that, you can have a seat. I'll make note that the public comment is closed. And before I open the floor for a motion in a second, I would note that we do have a site plan here. So let's make sure we reference that in whatever motions we make. So I'll open the floor for a motion in a second. I'd make a motion to approve V19-007, both Part 1 and Part 2, in accordance to the site plan by boundary survey dated 5/29/2019 for Mr. Dan Hansen. And no other conditions. Do I have a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Feel the site plan reference is sufficient enough?
If that's to me, yes.
Well, there's other drawing, which is not necessarily a site plan. It's more architectural drawing.
Do you intend to require that architectural
No,
element?
good point. This is the box, right, the boundaries. If there's no further discussion, then let's move forward with a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passed unanimous. Congratulations with your next project. Thank you for thanks for improving the aesthetics of your property and improving Milton and following the process. All right. Item number 7 on our agenda is consideration of appeals and secondary variances.
We do not have any.
We don't have any. Okay, item number 8 is business. And we have a number of items on here, so let's take them in order. First one, I'll defer to the city attorney regarding an update on documentation for administrative deferral. We do have a proposal before us on language.
What you have before you is a proposal to add a section to Article 5 of your bylaws, which you have authority to amend pursuant to the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance gives you authority to amend your bylaws. And this would be to add a Section 10 to Article 5. In essence, it would provide the community development director or the director of community development to take into consideration several factors which would allow him to take action to administratively defer an action which was either not ready as a legal procedural matter. We have had at times occasions where a legal ad may have had a typographical error or a misreference to a property, or perhaps the variance was erroneously stated, or various other reasons that could be contemplated, in which case this body would not be legally able to issue a valid decision after a properly conducted public hearing because it wouldn't have had the appropriate notice. Zoning procedures law prevents, or actually the code, our own code, the city code, would prevent that from being a valid decision by this board. We've also included, after discussion at the last meeting and some comments that I received in circulating the draft, a couple of other situations where that administrative deferral might be considered, one of which is if, if the staff determines that there and the situation sometimes arises wherein the board, in this case, has requested information, or there is not a procedural requirement, but the board is aware of a separate issue in terms of additional permitting or core consideration or stream crossing permits prior to going forward with this variance request. If that has not been obtained by the applicant in time for the meeting, then the community development director would also have the ability to consider whether or not administrative deferral would be in the best interest of the city, the applicant, and the community as well. The final situation, which I have included in here, is when in fact, and it may be similar situations, but the applicant themselves requests a deferral for whatever reason. Typically, it'll probably be one of those similar reasons that they haven't been able to get the materials that the director would have otherwise noted was not yet in the file. But it does require them as written they make the applicant to make a 96-hour, which I calculated to be 4 days, and the reason I went to that was to get it the Friday before the meeting, as opposed to 24 hours beforehand seemed a little tight on my end, and then rather than having a deadline come over the weekend, I pushed it it would be the Friday beforehand, which is where that number came from. You're welcome to think about anything else. That being said, that 96-hour is only applies to a written request from the applicant. The director would still have a requirement in each of these situations to post notice within at least 24 hours prior to the meeting to give the public, anyone that may be taking note of what is on the agenda, at least give them that 24 hours notice that the matter has been administratively deferred. And that being said, that is intended to be a minimum with every effort to get as much notice out as possible.
When you say deferral is posted at least 24 hours on the website, calendar,
website, and wherever the agenda might be posted, this would be added to note that it has been deferred. Would be the intent.
I've got a question for city staff on that. How much time does it take to post that? For example, if we get the 96 hours and we get notice, can we get that notice out basically the next day? Or?
So I generally post the Board of Zoning Appeals agenda the Thursday before to kind of give us some leeway on that. I've been talking to the director and other senior staff. We are going to try to propose to give the board members the staff reports the Monday, the week before, just so moving forward with this new addition to the variance application to give you time to go visit the property. So we're going to try to give it to you the week before, like a Monday or Tuesday, so you have enough time to review it and then make your determination if this is enough, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Which means then we would want to have notice of a deferral request a week before.
Yes, that would work. We can make it the Tuesday before the meeting. I mean, the week before the meeting.
Right, so you were aiming for the Friday before. If we just said the week prior to the scheduled meeting.
Mm-hmm. It can be anytime. Easy to.
I didn't mean to
for
hijack
legal
your question,
perspective.
but I think I didn't even consider that until you raised it. How often does the applicant come in the 11th hour and say, I'm not going to be ready? Or
Generally, it doesn't happen like the one that for the Westbrook Road variance. That was a administrative staff made. We saw the discrepancies on the site plan that was advertised versus what needed to be advertised. So kind of like that would have come up. We notified the applicant that it was going to be deferred. Mailing out letters, because we have to do mailing, it would be very difficult to do that. But if we do it a week before, give it the post office enough time, we could do that as well. Just because I know that the community, I don't know how often the city website's checked versus a word of mouth on saying, hey, it's deferred to next month. We can do that too. It doesn't matter to me. Just more legwork.
So to simplify, if we just said the Tuesday prior to the meeting would be sufficient,
That would work.
Or 1 week prior.
7 days prior?
Yeah, that.
Do we need to go with 7 calendar days versus?
I will, if that's what you want, I will make it 7 calendar days, yes, to be clear.
Okay.
Were we trying to get into the same wording here, the next step, which says, okay, it's been deferred, the director says it can be deferred, there's no other items on the agenda, and it mentions that here, but I don't see it say that the meeting then will not have to be held. Weren't we trying to get that in there, or was that a totally separate issue?
I think that was.
I believe if there's nothing on the agenda, then the practice has been, there's no need to meet.
Okay, so that would all, so to
By
follow
by deferring it, it means there's nothing on the agenda, no work to be conducted, therefore you're authorized.
So part of your process then would be to put some, in addition to posting the deferral, would be something that says the new,
The next.
the agenda is nothing, or something, I don't know. Or,
Correct.
Or do you
Yes.
say the meeting's canceled?
So like I'm using that example for the V19-007, how we just met just to defer it. There was no reason for us to all be here.
Right.
I would have notified the board, and I would have notified the applicant and sent out a letter to the surrounding properties saying that since this was administratively deferred, there will be no meeting held on this date.
And you would update the website.
Correct.
That's all fine with me. This is going to the board for the city council for approval? Okay, because I think there's some requirement that we meet every month or something or other, but I guess if there's no agenda, you know.
If there's nothing on the agenda, then there's not.
We haven't, in the past, we haven't. Do you feel that we need to specify that? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, I mean.
Just because council doesn't have the benefit of the background that we
Right.
do? So maybe as this is presented to council, we would at least outline for them the fact that if we don't have a caseload, we would remove it from the website and we would not be meeting that month.
Do you
I think that's what
want
Don's
that
asking.
to
If there's nothing else, if there's no other business, yeah.
If there's no other business to be conducted, then we would not have a meeting that month. I think that would be good. It's an abundance of caution, but it would send a message to the city council that we're trying to make better use of resources.
I agree.
Well, I think we had a situation where maybe 2 months in a row, there weren't any cases being heard.
And we didn't meet.
Is there a purpose to meet? I don't think there is.
Yeah, we didn't meet. That was this year.
Yeah.
That was
Okay,
October to March.
Well, there were times that we
October to
did
March,
meet and
really
there was no
nothing.
business.
right. We had both ways.
We've had it both ways. Paul, my only comment on this, and I appreciate you pulling this together, is just from a aesthetic layout standpoint, can you do some like Part A, Part B stuff in here to make it easier for?
Yeah, as
Digest.
I added items per some comments, I had that thought in mind. I can come up with another draft.
So it's really just
I
layout,
kind of
it's
had
not
that comment
content.
too.
Yeah.
I think I heard him say 4 different situations.
Yeah,
When
essentially,
he was reading it, he said situation 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, and
so
they're
it'd be
bro-
nice to enumerate those so that when the director is reading it, it's very clear for staff to show the director, look, we're applying situation number 2.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that there is a very easy way to do that, the way this is broken down, with just a slight change in the wording of the introduction to it, saying, in the following situations, and then let's
Boom,
1,
boom, boom,
2,
bullet
3,
ties and
4, or
whatever,
A, B,
yeah.
C, and D.
Yeah, that's nice. and clear.
I
It's easy to read.
I see no problem with coming up with
You guys
that.
all agree with that?
Yep, that's good.
Content-wise, I think we're okay with the 7-day change, calendar
Got
day
that.
change, some just layout to make it easier for, like you said, to operationalize this, right? So you know bullet points.
And with the clarification about the cancellation of meetings with no business.
Right. So is there any further discussion on this? And do we need to make a formal motion to have this move forward?
I don't need anything to go forward. I'll bring it back at the next meeting.
Do you have to
I
bring
will
it back to us, or now does it go to city council?
Well, if the intention at this point in time was to add it to the bylaws, which would be your own
That's our own
ability.
discretion?
Right.
It does not have to go to city council.
We have talked about it, and to the extent that you're adopting your procedures for meetings and what to do about the agenda. That is within your power and authority to amend your bylaws.
I couldn't remember. We've done it before, but it was
We
like
approached
2007.
it. We did.
Or 2009.
Actually, we looked at this maybe 2 years ago too. We
Did?
Something like 2-3 years ago,
Okay.
and it could be done by way of a code amendment. This is a little bit simpler, and if you want to change it from 7 days and you find that 10 calendar days works better, you've got a little bit more simple.
It'll make it easier to change it.
Okay, that's good information because that makes, yeah. It's next month. Do we have caseload? I know we just have this one deferral that we just
So we would
did.
have the deferred Bethany Church Road, and we will have, yes, we'll have 2 cases to hear next month.
You're sure?
Yes.
Because what I'm thinking is rather than just adopting this tonight, is have Paul clean it up just from a layout standpoint, and then we can adopt it at the next meeting.
Okay.
And the only thing I was hesitant is if the next meeting is going to be a deferral, then I want to adopt it now.
I think it would be nice to see it. I mean, I don't mind if we, well, like if it was emailed to us or something, but we still have to vote on it.
Yeah,
So-
so let's, if you could, please clean it up, get it back, distribute it back out, and then we'll vote on it next month.
And just one other comment. Do we have titles to these sections, like section 10? Do you then
Yeah,
say
should it be
Not the
titled
section of
administrative deferral?
Administrative deferral?
The section numbers throughout the bylaws do not
Have titles?
titles.
No, I think he's right, yeah.
Yeah.
I
All
have
right,
them
then
here.
we'll leave it as is.
The articles do. This is under, I think, the meetings
Okay.
article.
This is new section 10.
Yeah, but it's just section 10, it's not.
This is under Article 5 meetings, but just, it would be a new
Yeah,
section.
it just says section 1,
Okay,
section
that's
2,
fair enough.
section
If
3.
you feel that's good, then we're good.
Okay, all right, so Paul, you know what you got
Yep.
ahead of you there? Thank you for getting this proposed, and my goodness, I can't wait to get this in place. Moving on to item B, and I'm going to ask some help from those who were here at the last meeting, both staff as well as the vice chair who led the meeting. There was a request of a discussion around moving the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to 6 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. Any background on?
Yes, so at the last meeting, staff proposed that the Board of Zoning Appeals would meet at 6 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. A little background, we're the only board that meets at 7 p.m. It's just a suggestion. We just feel like it would be quicker to get out of here instead of wait till 7, but it's totally the board's call. I know we had 4 members last meeting, 4 or 5, but we discussed that we would need to get all 7 in here to vote to make sure that's okay with their schedules.
Do you recall what Jason's view was on this last month?
One of the things that Jason talked about is adjusting the time change, but we kind of stepped back and said, I don't think that's going to work, because that one meeting when time changes, everything gets messed up, basically. People aren't at the meeting when they need to be.
Right.
But all the other boards meet at 6.
Correct.
But none of the other boards are quasi-judicial.
That means we should meet at 7.
Sun goes down, boy, that quasi-judicial.
I'm liking the thinking.
Okay.
I think the other thing we need to keep in mind is what does that do to public comment and so forth? If folks are at work or something and they're trying to get here after work to speak, and we're moving the meeting closer towards regular business hours, that may create a potential challenge.
Well, how's that work for city council? I mean, have they had that issue?
No. That was the thinking. I mean, city council, everybody meets at 6.
I heard from Kim. She's sick tonight, so she couldn't make it. I would like. Ken is. He's going to need to be. I know where his position is on this as well, and I was curious what Jason's position was. So that we can,
I think the only one he brought up, as you said, the only thing I recall him mentioning was that split based on the time zone.
Maybe because his background's on the construction side a little bit, that he's working later during the summer.
Yeah.
More daylight.
Yeah.
That it's easier for him if the meeting's at 7 o'clock during the summer.
I wonder if we just split the difference, and for the balance of this year, because we only have a few more meetings, see how that works for us, and then we can revisit for next year, when we vote in a new calendar, moving it even further.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I feel like it's a challenge. 6 o'clock would be a challenge, but I
I do too.
haven't done it yet. So to know that the other boards, this is standard for them, I would like to try and see how that works.
So are you okay with moving the balance of this year to
Yeah.
6:30? And
Oh,
then
6:30.
And that's why I said split the difference.
Oh.
And then we can review if moving it all the way to 6 makes sense for next year, or do you just want to move all the way to 6?
If everybody else wants 6:30.
I'm fine with
I mean,
either or.
yeah, whatever.
That accomplish what staff is trying to accomplish in terms of,
I think they're trying to make it cohesive.
Well, the only problem with that is I've already advertised for next month, so that would
What time?
7.
So that one would have to stay.
Okay, that's good.
We can make it starting the
don't we
January
just-
So
meeting,
now we're talking
6.
October, November, December?
Why don't we just stay at 7 until maybe we readdress this, but in January?
I don't care. By October, the time is going to change and it's going to get dark.
I just see the can getting kicked when we get to 2020.
Right.
I think it's a staff's request. I mean, if I.
Well, sure,
that
'cause
they
they
would
have to
like
stay.
to move it
It's
to
a long
6,
day.
so I would like to support them on this.
I
I
agree.
would too.
Okay, I make a motion that we, starting with October, BZA move to 6 PM.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? We've had a
Change it on
lot.
my calendar right now.
And then we can always, so that'll be a test quarter. If that doesn't work out for us, we can always revisit it for
You know,
2020.
make a very concerted effort to note
Advertise
that.
it. Then we'll talk to Shannon.
Yeah, we're going to have
We'll go
to,
through our whole.
Well, this will give you 2 months to
Yeah,
implement.
it will give us
I
2
mean,
months
does that
and she'll
work
be able to
for
say.
you all? Is
It
6
does.
better for all of you? Okay.
oh yeah. So then, just so we're all clear, the September meeting, it's going to be held at 7 PM.
Okay.
And then once there's new variances come in, because the deadline is September 4th, anytime that September 4th comes up, that's going to be on the October meeting. I'm going to tell them 6 PM.
Correct.
For both for the DRB and BZA meeting, just so it's clear across the
We're
board.
going to vote on that right now.
Okay.
All those in favor of starting the meeting at 6 PM, starting with the October meeting for the balance of 2019, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed unanimous.
Okay.
Okay.
And just so we know, do you want to get in contact with the other board members, or do you want me to send out a massive email?
I think a summary email would be
Okay.
fine. I can do that.
Okay.
That's
Awesome.
easy. All right, item C was a change, a revised variance application. I'd like staff to walk us through what, the intent on this was to give us access to properties and make that a part of the application. So maybe one of the staff can walk us through this?
Yes, so what made staff implement this into the variance application was a variance that came up on Haygood Road. Kind of give the board members a more visual and an idealistic way of seeing the true property and what the intent is, rather than looking at it on a piece of paper. So if you turn to page 5, I have worked with Kim Gerard's office on kind of making it an option for the applicant when they come in. It's not required. It's solely an option for them. It just says, I state your name, give my permission to allow the Board of Zoning Appeal members to access my property during the variance hearing process. They can either check yes or no. And then they will be contacting staff, which will be me in this case, to set up meeting times. And then a little note is site access is purely optional, but helps the Board of Zoning Appeal members understand the need for the variance request. So kind of where the director and other staff have got with when the board, so say if the applicant wants to have the board access their property, you would set up times with me on what days work best for you. And then I would get in contact with the applicant to say, hey, you're going to be receiving A and B to come to your property on Tuesday at 6:30. Just so you don't come in there and scare them or call the police on you. And just so you are aware, you cannot have a quorum, so you can't have 4 or more. And this is solely optional, like I said, for them to allow this. So we feel as staff it gives the board a better understanding of what really the variance is rather than looking on it just from here. And we just like to get your input if this is good or bad or however.
I've got one question for you on this. So are we getting permission from the applicant themselves / owner, or what if they're working with a third-party engineering firm that's
Or a
representing?
lawyer,
Or an attorney?
Well, kind of like
Granting
what-
access.
I
How
will
does all
certainly
that
say
work?
that I know that I made specific note that it would need to have the permission of the owner.
And then if you keep on continuing, like the owner, applicant, and attorney, agent all have to sign this if that's possible. And when I do these pre-apps, I sit them down and they will say, yes, I give my permission. And that's what I'm saying. They would have to give their name and then yes. Whoever's the representative will be doing that. Most of the time it's the homeowner, just like other times it may be an attorney. That's going to be a more high-profile case, so we will be more respectful in that.
Can I recommend that and then we've got the line there, and then we put comma, the owner, so
Okay.
that way we don't have an attorney or an engineer signing on their behalf.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
And-
property owner, yeah.
So that way we know definitively it's the property owner, or if it's a
Okay.
entity.
Or power attorney.
Yeah.
There's a couple other things I thought of too regarding that scheduling it through you could be very cumbersome. Sometimes like today, I was in the area and I did a drive-by and I got to see enough of what I needed to see.
The only reason why Sam recommended that from Ken Gerard's office was because he wanted to ensure that there's not a quorum. So he said, if you do it through staff, then you'll ensure that the times are staggered. If there's a way we can work around that, it would be easier to do it but somebody has to notify the owner, right, when you're coming.
Right, and that's where I was headed with next. So it says right here, access my property. I think it would be helpful if you put in there during normal business hours,
Okay,
parentheses defining that, 9 to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. That's kind of the window. Or by appointment. And then they list either their email or their phone number where we can make an appointment directly with them.
oh,
Okay.
That
okay,
way,
that's better.
it
That
just
was
makes a
easy.
better use of
Yeah,
your
it
time
just
and our time. And we're
Yeah, it
not,
does, because this way, if you're there during the week, you can just zip by and see it.
Right.
Otherwise, you can make an appointment if it's on a weekend or not.
I
Yeah,
see
no, I
very
like that
little
much better.
opportunity where we're going to have a quorum issue.
Okay,
And if we do,
good.
we ought to know better to.
Right, so then if you
We'll
get there
wait
and you
or
see you
whatever,
have four, you have to break up, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay,
Does that concern you in any way?
Yeah, I'm not.
Yes or no?
I am not terribly concerned about 4 of you showing up randomly at the same time.
The likelihood of that is very, very low. And then doing it knowingly.
Well, 3 of you might, with one, I mean, there's a chance that three people that did coordinate show up with one person that didn't. Theoretically is possible, but let's just say just make it a general practice not to coordinate it. Although I guess it's easier on them if they have 3 two-person visits instead of 6 one-person visits. But hasn't been tried before. I don't know how much y'all intend to take advantage of it.
We would like to.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, so you begin this packet the week before the meeting. I can
Right, that gives us
notify
more
them
days, yeah.
saying from this date to this date during normal business hours, you may receive, and I'll give them a list of the names of these 7 people that may access your property. If that doesn't work for you, please give me time so I can let them know these are the best available times for you.
That was the third thing I was going to say. Alternatively, they would give us windows.
Yeah.
I mean, is there like a card or business, something that we could hand to them when
That's
if
what I
we
was
show up
asking,
there
if you
at their
wanted, like,
property
some sort of a-
randomly?
you needed some sort of badge.
We need
Like an ID
something
badge
to
that
present.
says, listen, we're
I
from the
think.
city. Yeah, maybe we should get them ID badges.
Because if I can see a difference if, okay, here we're going to show up at 3:30, but if it's a random, come between 9 and 5 on Tuesday or Thursday, I don't know.
We can get you ID badges.
I think that would be helpful.
We can get you ID badges. I think that would help too. That's a great idea.
You have to get a bigger wallet.
The size of it.
Make them small, not
They know
like
As long as it says quasi.
No, they
Something
are
else
bigger
to keep
than
in
a credit
mind.
card.
something else to keep in mind as far as us making contact with the homeowners is then that puts us in a position of disclosing a personal email, which I know is already an ongoing issue, as well as cell phone information, and then them contacting us directly, which it could have unintended consequences.
And I also tend to suggest that for the quasi-judicial nature of your board, the one aspect of it that actually that statement is particularly relevant is you are bound by the information presented to you, and you're to make a decision based on that. So you can't bring the property here. So it makes sense that outside of the hearing, you go and visit the property and can say you've visited the property. But contact and discussion with the property owners outside of this hearing renders it impossible for us to then submit the record on appeal. We have several appeals, going forward, and anything that happened here, we have video record, we have documentation of it, we can send it up to the Superior Court and consider that was the record. But we can't rely on what you were told by the applicant or by the neighbor while you were out in the field. So you need to essentially not have those the conversation. I mean, you can say, "Hi, I'm here. This is who I am. I'm here to do this." That's all. Will something come up? It may. Your best option then is to say, "I appreciate the information. You need to present that at the hearing so that it can be part of the record and we can officially consider it as part of our analysis."
Great suggestion.
So as I think out loud, maybe a way of addressing this is, one, if they give us permission to access during normal business hours, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. That's one level of access. They may be fine just with that. Or they can give us specific timeframes.
By appointment.
And then we need to work through staff
Or
on that, probably.
they may, the most restrictive is they would say, well, only by appointment, in which case we probably then should do that through staff.
Yeah.
But so ideally, they'll just give us access. Or they'll say, you can have access, but only on Thursday and Friday,
Right, we're not
which is
entering
okay.
that.
We could manage with that. Or they say, well, you need to make an appointment, in which case we'll have to use Cody.
So any limitations that they want, we'll just make a note of it on the application.
Just give them those three
Adhere to
options.
it.
Free access.
Make sure the
yeah,
board
the-
knows what those limitations are. And it's, like I said, we're going to try to get everything out a week in advance, so it should help with those visits.
And I did make reference about personal emails. I know the city manager is looking at getting us a city email for the rare occurrence that our information does get out and people contact us as they have with other cases. Really shouldn't be doing that through personal email, given open records and such. So if there is an appointment need, we should be working through you, but hopefully we can get the 9 to 5
Yeah, and then
or
we can just
specific
go.
days and use that as a last resort.
Right.
Or if we get our city emails, we can deal directly with them. I mean, those would be published
Yeah,
anyway.
although I think it still has unintended consequences, where you're now opening potentially a chain of
Yeah,
communication,
then there's like a dialogue.
which then could provoke a conversation through email.
I would
Unintended.
breed familiarity.
Should have been a lawyer.
So, but do the city council get, I mean, because they've got the city emails,
They do.
and so I'm sure they get
And
correspondence.
they're also not generally making quasi-judicial decisions.
And they're elected officials, and we're
Yeah.
volunteers.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
I do like the idea of us having some sort of identification, whether
Yeah.
that's a card, business card, or a badge of some sort.
Yeah, we'll get
If
you
you're a
badges.
property owner, they're just having to trust us.
Yes.
So the
Especially
thing,
so.
I will say this with the badges, they were all photo ID. So I think you're probably going to have to come in and just
Or
take,
send us a picture.
yeah.
That's
either-
fine, we can come
either a
in, that's not a
digital
big deal.
picture or just
I'd rather
come
come
in.
in.
We'll take your picture quick. We have a machine that takes
Yeah,
the photo.
Don's got to do it before his next haircut. Quick.
It'll be 2-3 months from now.
Better get it now.
Just let
All right,
us
so
know
do you
when.
feel you have enough
Yeah.
guidance to modify this, and then we, we can actually formalize it next meeting?
Yeah.
To get this in practice?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can send updates to everybody to see if this is good, make this little tweaks.
Feel free to send us updates, but we're not going to debate it in the email.
Okay.
We'll discuss it here.
Discuss it.
Basically, he'll broadcast it. You can provide individual comments back to him, and he can incorporate them as he
Right.
seems appropriate.
And again, on this item,
And send another one out.
Ken said that it was okay for us to do it, just internally, the board's got the capability of modifying this without it going to council.
Oh, good.
And we did have.
Meaning that we can actually move quicker.
Yes, and I did have the Community Development Director announce it at the staff report to council, that it was your intention to do this.
He already has.
He has.
Okay.
And there was no problem. Not that he didn't report any issue to me.
So this is minor, I'm sure, but the variance. Sorry, go ahead.
No, he hasn't done that.
That's probably worth
It's probably
making them
worth
aware
saying
of.
it too.
Yeah, they may not be a surprise to
I'll do the
city
same thing on
council.
his next department staff update. I'll make him indicate the time change as well.
Just where it says variance hearing process, is that the variance hearing? I mean, I know what it is, but is it a variance hearing application
I would
process?
actually, hearing you say that, probably application is the more appropriate.
So we have two forms. One is the variance pre-application, which that is where most of the information goes down in. This is pretty much this is pretty much a checklist of what they need to submit to me. And it's pretty much self-explanatory. And pretty much the only thing that's important is on page 3, I give them when the application's due, when all the meetings are held, and then they check off which variances they're applying to. They give me the description of the property, and I write down the article section and the request that they're proposing. And then once this is all finalized, they have to notarize it. They have to get it notarized saying, this is who I am. Right. And
I was just wondering if it should say variance hearing application
Oh,
process.
sorry. I thought you meant the whole thing.
But that was a good explanation. Sorry.
I think you're right. It's the whole process is the application process
Yeah.
as opposed to just the hearing.
The hearing
I mean,
process.
I'm sure we could survive a challenge, but it's
Right.
clear.
Yeah.
I agree with it.
So keep process or,
They could change hearing to application.
oh, okay.
I don't know if it's going back to Sam or not.
Turning the page on are we done with old business? Anything further to discuss?
I'm saying that if we can get an update, if anything has changed on Haygood Road.
Oh, yeah. And
I can tell you from a litigation standpoint, an appeal has been filed. There are, we'll go forward. I think we'll probably have some procedural issues to deal with as well. An answer needs to be filed next week. It's one I'm working on, so I'm familiar with that. There was talk of the party, the sides getting together to see if there was any middle ground. There's nothing on the table, nothing going forward at the moment, but it hasn't been foreclosed yet.
So was there I thought there was a letter that was being sent out by the city staff.
I'm sorry. I didn't remember if that had gone out before the last meeting. I believe was over my letter. I know I drafted one. There's been a lot since then. A demand to bring it back into compliance was sent. And I think that's kind of what prompted the.
Let's meet to discuss.
Moving forward, with that sort of intent. So that the demand has been made, the appeal has been filed, and now, well, I don't know exactly how it was served. I know it was received by the staff or someone with the city. So the appeal is going forward. Both are kind of going down the same avenue at this time.
Okay. We'll let you guys do your thing. Any other old business to discuss? Item number 9 on our agenda was new business. Is there any? Item number 10.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion to adjourn. We are adjourned.